All right, we've got some names now of these officers. 3 so far have been identified by authorities in Dallas: Brent Thompson, Michael Kroll, and Patrick Zamparipa. Those are the 3 officers killed in Dallas that have been identified thus far. Let's welcome back in Tom Whatley, a retired police detective who served in Delray Beach, Florida, which is Palm Beach County. And anyone who is a fan of the TV show Cops like myself knows that the reason why Cops continues to film in Palm Beach County, Tom, is because it's a very interesting place to do police work. We look at the situation in Dallas. Officials now in Texas say there was in fact one shooter responsible for these 5 deaths and 7 other people who were shot and killed. There was some confusion initially, Tom. They believe there were 2 shooters. People might have a hard time understanding how they could get something so simple incorrect initially. Explain to us why this type of stuff happens in the initial release of information in these types of events.
Well, as you saw in the early videotapes, the officers didn't even know where the shooting was coming from. You're in a downtown area with a sniper. They were busy cover and concealment, as also protecting the very protesters that they were there to protect. So it goes without reason that the information changes so much. They just don't know what they have. They had a whole perimeter, a whole city block in Dallas is a large area to cover that they end up cordoning off and trying to search. The information came from citizens on the street as well as who they thought they saw with guns and walking around, and that is an open carry state as well, as we know by the one gentleman that was all over social media.
Yeah, who was wrongly accused or as wrongly identified as a suspect. Is there any kind of training that prepares officers for a scenario like this? Do you guys train for this?
Well, we always train for active shooter. We train for situations like this. This was just one of those situations that I don't think the officers were off guard per se. I think that the shooter was just on his game. He was able to just shoot the officers like sitting ducks. He was in a profile position. He knew what he was doing with the rifle. My understanding is he was also a member of a shooting club. So he's a little bit more dangerous, especially with the military background, than another whack job that may decide to go out and buy a rifle and shoot it for the first time and take out people.
Now we're looking at the video here. There's obviously a parking deck. That's part of the equation. You mentioned he had that perspective from up on high, was able to target the police officers. When a president comes to town or a official comes to town, and we see the gunshots here on the ground with the suspected shooter, and this is just still so difficult to watch. But Tom, when the president comes to town, they clear the parking decks, they do that type of security. Do you see that now being a necessary precaution that local police departments need to take if another protest comes up or a march is planned and you have these situations? Do you think they're already doing that?
John, I do think they do that already. This was a situation where it was going to be a ground level. They weren't looking for snipers. There's just no way to know that that's going to happen. When a dignitary comes to a major metropolitan city, there are hundreds of federal officers. Even their own snipers are on top of buildings, not to mention helicopters. This was just supposed to be a few hundred people walking through downtown. They called in off-duty detail officers to come and work this. It's just not something you think that you're going to be able to have to, scope the top of buildings or look for snipers. There's just no way they would have known this was going to happen or prevent it.
You can't prevent these types of things. You can't always be safe. But hats off again to all the police officers out there who responded, and especially when I saw, Tom, so many police officers moving the public out of the way to keep them safe. Thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to the police officers. Tom, great to talk with you. Stick around. I think we can get back to you if we have any more information. We got much more to come here on the Hardline. We continue to talk about the sniper shooting in Dallas, Texas. 5 police officers killed, 7 others wounded. So many questions remain today. More to come after this.
107, show me route. Code 3, Market and Lamar. Code 3, Market and Lamar, shots fired. Saying the suspect has a rifle. He's got a rifle, put him on. We got a suspect down. 10-4, we're notifying him. We got one more shooter out here. We got 2 at the Baylor Hospital.
We're hurting. Our profession is hurting. The suspect said he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers.
We are all stunned by the events last night in Dallas. We're all outraged.
Never in our wildest dreams would we have imagined that 5 police officers would be dead this morning.
We will not shy away from the very real fact that we as a city, as a state, as a nation, are struggling with racial issues.
After the events of this week, Americans across our country are feeling a sense of helplessness, of uncertainty, and of fear. Now, these feelings are understandable and they are justified, but the answer must not be violence. The answer is never violence.
And we refuse to hate each other. We refuse to allow one event to define who we are as a city and community.
An attack on the people who protect us is an attack on all of us.
The attack on the officers was a cowardly and insane act of terrorism. It in no way represents anything about our long struggle for peace and justice for all.
We're calling on a passage of bringing together police and community, the Law Enforcement and Integrity Act.
We as a city, we as a country must come together, lock arms, and heal the wounds that we all feel from time to time.
This was a well-planned, well-thought-out, evil tragedy. We won't rest until we bring everyone involved to justice.
And that investigation continues. As we've discussed, 4 people in total were arrested after this, but authorities now say, including the Director of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, says that one shooter was responsible for all 5 of these deaths and the 7 others who were shot as well. Let's welcome back in retired police detective Tom Whatley, a longtime veteran. And Tom, the discussion that we heard there from some of our elected members in Congress talking about the need to heal the rift between the community and the police department and the racial aspect of this, I was struck by something that Newt Gingrich actually said today. I want to read it to you and get your reaction. And if I didn't tell you this was Newt Gingrich, you might not believe me when I tell you this, but this is Newt Gingrich here during an interview with CNN today. He said, quote, "It is more dangerous to be black in America. It is more dangerous in that they are substantially more likely to end up in a situation where the police don't respect you and you could easily get killed. And sometimes for whites, it's difficult to appreciate how real that is and how it's an everyday danger." Your reaction?
Well, I don't know if he's taken notice what's occurred in Chicago as of late, but you know, the black-on-black crime is phenomenal. And every weekend there's 50, 60 people shot and killed in that city. Holiday weekends, it's just off the charts. So I would rather see the issues of the inner city areas being addressed on the whether it's black on black crime or any on crime. It needs to be handled at a local level and it needs to be taken care of. But for him to say that, you're right. It doesn't sound like something he would normally say.
But you know, is it more dangerous that there are, you know, the people can point to statistics that blacks are disproportionately affected by police violence?
Well, you know, I'm not sure where those statistics come from. I look at the total statistics of the ethnicities that were killed by police last year. Now, you have to understand there's 800,000 police officers in this nation handling tens of thousands of contacts a day. But by gosh, we get 1 or 2 that just happen to make, you know, somebody's iPhone, then, you know, the United States comes apart. So I find it amazing that with all the contacts going on, we had 2 incidents in 2 days, and in between those 2 days, I can really throw a good number out that tens of thousands of contacts were made by police officers with that incident.
You know, how do we clear up that confusion?
Well, I think what has happened is this has probably been the statistics all along, but social media, everybody has the ability to broadcast live on Facebook, including Newsmax. So I think what's happening is, you know, people, I'm looking at a producer that you know, can check his phone and check the news right away and see what's going on to help everybody out. And what's happening is our news source has become Facebook, it's become the iPhone. And I don't know what we can do to change that because sometimes it's not real news.
Well, of course, police officers have started wearing body cameras. There was the issue at the Alton case, or the case in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where they fell off the body. But cops are going to be on camera. You believe that these body cameras are going to ultimately prove to be a good thing for this discussion we're having, this discussion between communities and police?
John, I've said this for a long time. I am a proponent of body cameras. Some of the old school police officers that started in the mid 70s that are just about faded out, no, of course they don't like it. You know, nobody likes change when they're used to doing something for 30 years. Your newer generation police officers, they actually want that protection. They want to be able to show their commander, hey, look, I didn't call him the name that he said I called him. Here's my camera. Take a look. So I think this is going to be, first of all, it's going to change the behavior of the police officer on scene. Also, too, bad guys, I can tell you from personal experience on the street, do not like to be filmed. If they know that camera's on them, they actually change their behavior. So I think this is a win-win when the police officers are wearing cameras.
Now, this is the moment in the few days after this, you hear all the calls for unity, you hear this need for the discussion. We've heard all this before. This seems like it's different at this point. Do you believe this is a turning point in this discussion?
I do believe that it is a paradigm change, that the silent majority that has sat back. You've got your vocals that have been marching in the streets in the city of New York, calling for the death of cops that we've seen on video time and time again. But now you've got a silent majority sitting on their couches that watch the news every night, and they're saying, wait a minute, now we're taking out our first line of defense civilly here. We're taking out the police officers. This is not right. So you're going to see a paradigm shift in the silent majority. Soon that's going to become the vocal majority.
Yeah, there does need to be a paradigm shift, not just with the sound majority, the vocal majority, but with everybody here in this country. Let's get to a call. We got Herbert from Woodbridge, Virginia. Herbert, you say President Obama is to blame. Tell us why. Herbert, can you hear us? Can you turn your television down, please? All right, Herbert's having some trouble. Let's move on. We got Greg from Powderhorn, Colorado. Greg believes fear may have caused some police officers to overreact in some certain situations. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Pretty good. I've got a lot of first-hand experience with this, actually, and I just wanted to say that this problem's been going on for a long time. We're talking decades. And hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
I was saying that I have a lot of first-hand experience with this problem, and it's been going on for decades, actually. And with the onslaught of technology, it's just been brought to the forefront more for people to see, with cameras everywhere and cell phones and the like. The big issue here is a combination of things. It's fear within the police department themselves, which I started to see rise in the early 80s when we started to see a lot more gang activity with the Crips and the Bloods and so forth. And not just them, but this problem is all over, depending on where you are, demographics. If you were in southern parts of Texas, it would be, Hispanic gangs. And these different.
Well, let me stop you right there, Greg, because I want to get Tom to react because we're running out of time here. But Tom, the fear in the police department, I would be scared approaching anybody's car at night, not knowing who was inside it. What do you think about that? With 30 seconds left.
Well, I can tell you, it's a human reaction. When a police officer sees something and his adrenaline is up, his parasympathetic resistors kick in, the old fight or flight. But what happens is through muscle memory, we train for many, many scenarios, to include even domestic violence, to walk into a house and remove a 250-pound man that just beat his wife up. So we had to push through that envelope to be able to get that done. So, but yes, there is fear. I think the Ferguson factor has really kicked in. They're afraid to get out of their car sometimes.
That's where we need to step up and support our law enforcement community and help them get over that, of course, natural human reaction. Tom Whatley, thanks for being with us. We have much more to come here on Newsmax TV. Our continuing coverage continues after this expanded coverage with the Steve Malzberg Show live from New York. Thanks for being with us. I'm John Bachman in for Ed Berliner.